Okay, that is our cue. It is 2:31 Eastern Time, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Hello, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are calling in from. My name is Andy Mervis. I lead outreach on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, or EECBG for short. I will start off this morning with just a bit of housekeeping. This Zoom call is being recorded and may be posted on DOE's website or used internally. If you do not wish to have your voice recorded, please do not speak during the call or disconnect now. If you do not wish to have your image recorded, please turn off your camera or participate only by phone. If you wish to use the call, if you speak during the call or use a video connection, you're presumed to consent to recording and to the use of your voice or image. Okay, now I'm so delighted to have everyone here today. And for the sake of just getting started on this afternoon, I'd like to get started with a bit of a poll to see where we are all at today. So I will pass it over to my colleague, Alvaro Escalera, who will warm us up with a poll. Over to you, Alvaro.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everyone. So like Andy was saying, I'd really like to do just a quick poll to get a sense of how the EECBG program might benefit you. And so we're just going to take 30 seconds to answer the poll with which of the following elements of the community's infrastructure could use an efficiency upgrade to conserve energy and save money. The options available are heating and ventilation and air conditioning, lighting upgrades, transportation, and general energy audits to see which aspects are consuming the most energy and money in your buildings. We'll give everyone around 30 seconds and feel free to select as many options as you'd like. All right, here are the results. So it seems that most people selected heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, but almost everyone on the line at least selected one of the options. So that shows that there's at least one aspect that most governments on the line could use EECBG funds to their benefit. That means everyone here is in the right place. So I'm going to hand it back over to Andy to provide much more information on the program.
All right. Thank you very much, Alvaro. Always exciting to know that program funds can be useful. So before we get deep into the program, I just want to introduce you all to my colleagues that are joining us today. So Alvaro Escalera is an ORISE fellow at DOE that supports the vouchers work on our program. I am Andy Mervis. I lead outreach for the EECBG program. Sarah Gardner is the Climate Action Coordinator from Iowa City, Iowa. And Sarah Yeager is the Senior Program Manager of the International City and County Management Association, or ICMA. We're delighted to have everyone here today on the call. Okay, next slide, please. So what will we cover today? I'll first give a brief overview of the EECBG program, and then we'll take a long look at what can be done with EECBG program funds based on real examples from already awarded or approved projects. We'll then have Sarah Gardner talk about Iowa City's experiences with the program, and we'll talk at length about an alternative application option which is designed to reduce the administrative burden of the program, the vouchers option. We'll then cover the application process and resources available to you throughout that process, and we'll complete the presentation by discussing several misconceptions about the program. We'll aim to have at least 10 minutes for Q&A at the end, and please don't hesitate to drop in your questions throughout. We will be keeping track of them and we will come back to them at the end of the session. All right, let's begin. Next slide, please. So what is the EECBG program, or the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program? It's a highly flexible formula grant program for which 1,878 local governments, 774 tribes and Alaska Native villages and corporations, and 56 states, territories, and Washington, D.C. all receive direct allocations for grants from the Department of Energy. These funds can be used for just about anything that promotes energy conservation or reduces emissions in your community. And this program was funded under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and is managed at the Department of Energy via the Office of State and Community Energy Programs, or SCIP. So there are three most important things to remember about the program if you leave this webinar with anything in your mind. The first one is, I mentioned this program is highly flexible and formula-based. So the program has direct allocations to local governments and tribes, and this formula allocation is based on population. So my colleague will drop links into the chat so that you can kind of look up the tribe that you're from or the local government that you're from and review your application or your allocation if you don't know it already. The other thing I want to mention is that this program is truly flexible. There are 14 different eligible use areas, and they really do cover a wide range that can be really wide range. So those can be used for energy efficiency upgrades to public or private buildings, audits of your housing stock to identify ways to bring down utility costs, strategic planning, EVs and EV infrastructure, and even workforce development. So it really does run the gamut. You also can team up and pool your funds with other local governments and tribes to maximize your impact. Okay, the second most important thing to know about the program is that we have an alternative to traditional grant application processes. So DOE knows that applying and reporting on federal grants can require a significant administrative burden. And we've developed an alternative, which are vouchers for equipment rebates or installation rebates or technical assistance. And we really recommend the voucher option for all eligible entities with awards lower than $250,000, although any local government or tribe can pursue a voucher if you have a higher allocation than that. So that's the second most important thing. We have a streamlined, simplified application process for you. And of course, the third most important thing to remember is the deadline. So for local governments, that's coming up soon. It's October 31st, 2024. And for tribes, it's May 31st, 2025. I want to strongly reiterate that this is one-time funding, so you have to come and claim it by your deadline. Otherwise, we don't know if it will be coming around again. Okay, those are the three most important things. Let's talk about what you can do with this program. Next slide, please. I mentioned before that this is a highly flexible program, and you can see here that there are 14 different eligible uses of EECBG program funds. These are listed here. This is outlined by Congress. Please take your time with this slide. We'll be sending these out after. And I want to show you this not to go into detail, but to give you a sense of the breadth of projects and programs that you can pursue with this program. We're going to do deep dives on different kinds of projects that have already been awarded shortly. The key takeaway here is that if you have a project in mind that ultimately reduces your community's total energy use or carbon emissions in your community, and it's not a brand new building, the EECBG program can probably fund it. And I look forward to seeing how you all make good use of that. Okay, next slide, please. I'll quickly just double click on the vouchers option that I discussed earlier. So DOE knows that applying for and managing federal grants can be extremely time consuming, and we've heard that feedback loud and clear. So we've developed this option, the vouchers option, to significantly streamline and shorten the process as much as possible. And there are two different kinds of vouchers that you can pursue: vouchers for equipment and installation rebates or technical assistance. And you can contribute your full allocation to a voucher. So if you're eligible for a grant of $75,000, you can put that full $75,000 into an equipment rebate, for example. What are the main differences between traditional grants and vouchers? I think the main thing really to underscore here is that traditional grants provide the maximum amount of flexibility. So you can use traditional grants for projects that incur significant administrative costs, like paying for staff time, implementing financing programs, or workforce training. It's sort of that type of thing. If you want to pursue a voucher, why would you pursue a voucher? The main reason is it's a shorter application. It's got fewer reporting requirements. It's really designed for places that have staff capacity or resource constraints. And DOE can also process voucher applications more quickly. So this is really the route to go if you have a straightforward project in mind. If you've got, for example, HVAC that you'd like to be upgraded, if you have lights that you'd like to update to LEDs, you're interested in purchasing EVs, those types of things, kind of simple one-to-one projects are really, really well suited for a voucher. And I also want to underscore the technical assistance option. The technical assistance voucher option is great because DOE assigns a technical assistance provider to you to help with site analysis or planning, or creating a plan for community outreach, et cetera. And what's so great about this is because DOE assigns a provider to you, you don't need to go through your own procurement process to find a contractor to do this work. DOE will actually do it for you, and so no funds are exchanged with DOE, which significantly reduces your reporting requirements. Ultimately, the choice is yours. Either way, this is a highly flexible program, and the vouchers are simply one option you can pursue if you have a straightforward project in mind. Okay, I'm going to now pass the mic over to my colleague Alvaro, who will help bring this program to life. Over to the next slide, please.
Hey, everyone.
While these, oh, go ahead, Alvaro. That's okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just could we go back to the previous slide for a second? Thank you. Yeah. So hi, everyone. Once again, I'm going to be starting off about talking some very exciting building upgrades that can benefit your communities. Next slide, please. So starting off with our project highlight section, we have a county in the Midwest using their allocation of around $77,500 through the equipment rebate voucher option to upgrade their local courthouse. These upgrades include 2 gas furnaces, 1 hot water boiler, and upgrading their halogen lights to LEDs. This county specifically has a high poverty rate and really wanted to upgrade their existing infrastructure without burdening taxpayers. Next slide, please. The other building upgrade project on our list is Ann Arbor, Michigan. I really like this project personally because it really provides 2 benefits to the community in the form of a resiliency hub and an educational center. So Ann Arbor has a larger award allocation that they used in the form of a traditional grant to retrofit the Bryant Community Center. These upgrades include a full building retrofit in a disadvantaged community, including solar panels, new heat pumps, a water heater, insulation, windows, battery storage, updated electric panels, and other controls for conserving energy. Just a lot. Allowing the building to provide critical services and power to the neighborhood during big storms or other disruptive weather events. It'll also serve to educate the community on techniques and technologies that serve to save energy and money in cold climates. Next slide, please. Okay, so second up on our list, we have the vehicles and transportation upgrade section. These projects usually have less reporting requirements and are excellent options to expand municipal fleets or develop one. Later on in the presentation, we'll also be hearing a lot more about vehicle upgrades from Sarah Gardner from Iowa City. Next slide, please. So Livermore is a city in California that used their $144,230 allocation as part of an equipment rebate to purchase solar-powered EV chargers. These chargers are multi-purpose as not only can they be used to charge EVs, but their battery storage can also be used as a generator for buildings during extreme weather events. This particular city wanted to place the equipment at a public library and civic center for public use with capacity for charging up to 2 EVs at any given time. But as these chargers are portable, they can be moved to serve higher volume areas. Something to highlight about this is that if these projects generally do not cause ground disturbance or require installation, which ultimately reduces a lot of the reporting requirements. Next slide, please. Okay, next up on our project highlights, we have the planning section. I really like this one because there's quite a lot of ways to approach planning depending on location, allocation size, and just general needs of the local government or tribe. But I'm certain that the next 3 examples should give everyone a really nice understanding of the flexibility of planning. Next slide, please. Okay, so our first example is Lake County, Ohio, which is using their traditional grant allocation of $81,130 to conduct a feasibility design study for a 300-acre commercial solar array in local community. The planning will allow the county to provide opportunities for future private and public investment. The commercial array will provide an alternative power source to the community and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. And in addition, the construction of the solar array will boost workforce development and create jobs. Through this specific planning, the solar array will also benefit from a siting evaluation to alleviate any concerns from the community about location. Next slide, please. All right, so now we saw planning on a larger scale, as arrays are pretty big, but we have something here on the small that seems smaller upon first impression. We have a county in the Northern Plains that is using their technical assistance voucher to study the feasibility of transitioning from older heating and cooling systems to newer, more efficient ones in their courthouse. Now, these projects are just as important as potential solar arrays because, as I like to say, proper planning prevents poor performance. The cost savings benefit associated with adequate planning are not to be understated, as this building provides services to the community, and the upgrades can really reduce utility bills and save costs in both the immediate and the long term. In addition, the technical assistance voucher specifically, as DOE is the one who's selecting and paying for the technical assistance administrator, this specific county did not need to go through their own procurement process. Next slide, please. All right, so last up on our list for planning is the Uyapai Band of Kumeyaay Indians in California, who will use their EECBG program funds to kickstart their energy planning goals. They are also using their $10,000 allocation as part of a traditional grant to increase access to renewables, connect to their local grid, and reduce their reliance on propane generators. This will significantly help reduce energy burden for those communities that rely on generators for power. And I also want to take a moment to recognize that even though $10,000 is a low amount allocation and significantly lower than anyone discussed prior, EECBG funds can definitely be used as part of a broader investment goal. And we also have other teaming opportunities to pool funds together and maximize the use of those funds. Next slide, please. All right, almost done. We've got the low income and weatherization project examples coming up. Next slide, please. So first up, we have Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is using their traditional grant allocation of $424,330 for home energy upgrades in low-income housing, specifically targeting property owners and renters that earn less than 80% of the area median income or live in a city-designated environmental justice area. A lot of these weatherization programs can really end up benefiting these low to median income families that could really use a lot of support in this area. Minneapolis plans to use 100% of their allocation for ultra high efficiency heat pumps, water heaters, and other weatherization measures. The city has goals of weatherizing 30,000 homes and reducing energy costs for residents by 50% by 2030. Next slide, please. All right. So in sunny Southern California, San Diego County's project is a good example of the flexibility of EECBG program funds. They have two distinct programs that they are standing up with their funds. First off, we have the Equitable Solar Installation Program that covers upfront installation costs for solar for approximately 20 low to moderate income households, following DOE's Solarize campaign blueprint. Second, we have the Electric Cooktop Loaner Program that allows residents to borrow clean induction cooktop technology by providing these cooktops to borrow at 17 county facilities, just to test out if these cooktops are right for the residents. San Diego's project really demonstrates how larger cities can deploy EECBG program funds on multiple projects and fronts that address energy burdens, household health, and climate mitigation all at once. Next slide, please. Okay, almost done. Last up on our list, we have some renewable energy projects. Next slide, please. If we look to the southeast, there's a city utilizing their allocation of $135,000 in the form of an equipment rebate voucher to purchase and install solar equipment on their new fire station to reduce energy costs. Most emergency service buildings use up a lot of energy and can be really costly to maintain. So this specific city decided that the solar panels would allow them to save a lot of costs while also reducing a lot of the stress on their local energy grid. Next slide, please. And last, but certainly not least, we're moving east towards Buncombe County, North Carolina. This project demonstrates how smaller local governments can really leverage the EECBG program to advance existing clean energy priorities. The county will purchase and install battery storage at 2 county buildings with existing solar systems. First, the Public Safety Training Center, and second, the Health and Human Services Building. Battery storage coupled with on-site renewable energy generation increases energy reliability in the face of storms and other extreme weather events. And the aim of this specific project is to increase energy resilience in public serving facilities. Next slide, please. Okay, no, that was a lot. So now that we've discussed different project highlights, I really want to dive in a bit deeper into like the voucher option and see if this would be a better option for folks on the line compared to the traditional grant or vice versa. Next slide, please. Okay, now that we have a sense of what can be done, how do we go about doing it? Well, as previously discussed, there are two vouchers. There's the equipment and installation rebate voucher and the technical assistance voucher. The equipment and installation rebate voucher can be used, for example, for building upgrades, vehicles, and home weatherization, but it is not just limited to these options. The application for the rebate voucher is very simple. A local government or tribe submits a short application with the proposed equipment type, of which you do not need to have the specifications, to DOE. DOE reviews and approves your complete application. Then the local government or tribe purchases and installs after confirmation of approval. They then submit invoices and proof of purchase to DOE. And after DOE receives the invoices and proof of purchase, DOE issues the reimbursement to the applicant. For the technical assistance voucher, common project examples are planning for HVAC upgrades, a solar feasibility study, or siting for EV chargers, but this as well is not limited to these specific examples. The application process for a TA voucher is even more simple than the one for the equipment rebate. As the local government or tribe submits an application with the technical assistance required, DOE reviews and approves the application. DOE's TA administrator assigns a TA provider who then executes the scope of work agreed upon, and the TA administrator submits the monthly invoices to DOE. No funds in this scenario are exchanged between DOE and the applicant, which reduces reporting requirements immensely. Next slide, please. Okay, now that we have a clear understanding of project highlights and the application processes for both equipment rebate vouchers, I really want to hammer home that whichever shape your project takes, both grants and vouchers have their merit. The summary is basically this. For larger or more complex projects or entities that value flexibility in utilizing their funds, the grants route would probably be the most effective one. For those that have simple projects that involve purchasing and installing the equipment or conducting really straightforward analysis, I am certain that both me and the rest of the vouchers team would love to assist you throughout this. So that's basically all on my end. So I'll hand things over back to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvaro. Your passion and excitement for the project and the vouchers option certainly rang through. All right. So I hope you all found those projects inspiring and accessible. We're now going to transition to our sort of life as an EECBG program grantee portion of this webinar, so you all can get a sense of what it's actually like to go through this process. I'm thrilled to introduce Sarah Gardner, the Climate Action Coordinator of Iowa City, Iowa, to talk about her experiences in the EECBG program. Iowa City was allocated roughly $136,000 and has been exceptionally creative with how they have spent their funds. So over to you, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much. And Alvaro is definitely a tough act to follow. So I appreciate the chance to see all these other amazing projects in other municipalities. As Andy said, I'm Sarah Gardner. I live and work in a city called Iowa City. I sometimes joke that on presentations like this, people must think it's a placeholder, like insert city from Iowa here, but we are in fact a real place. We have a population of about 75,000. Folks who live in the city. We are the home to the University of Iowa, so in summer, our population gets cut in half. And as you can imagine, that's a pretty small community with pretty limited staff capacity to manage something like a federal grant. Prior to working for the city of Iowa City, I worked for a council of governments that managed major federal grants, and so I had some familiarity with the work that was involved in the reporting requirements. Enough to be, I will be honest, a little intimidated about applying for EECGB funding. I felt like I knew what might be involved from having watched colleagues manage these grants, But I also was coming from a place where we had a dedicated person who could do the prevailing wage reporting, a dedicated person who could do the environmental review for projects. And here, I essentially was going to have to do that all on my own. And I will say, I have been so impressed with the team that has been put together and the efforts to streamline the reporting requirements. I will even say, I see Shay Rupinski's on this call. She has been our contact for the program throughout our application. Shout out to Shay. She is amazing and has been wonderful to work with. I want to tell you just a little about what we've been using the money for and how great it has been actually for our city. As you can see on this slide, we decided to pursue some EV projects. This includes the heart of our application, which was applying for a new electric vehicle for support to our AmeriCorps team that we use to go out into the community and do home energy audits and weatherization services. They have a requirement that 75% of those audits need to be performed within vulnerable households in the community. And we had recently, at the time of the application, entered into an arrangement with Johnson County, the county where we are in Iowa, to expand those services to outlying areas and communities. So having a good, reliable vehicle to reach some of these outer areas we hadn't been going to before was really key to the program. In addition, putting them in an electric vehicle was going to be an ambassador for some of the climate programs that we like to promote, and that, as some of you may have experienced in your own communities, may have some skepticism, so we try to use the vehicle to turn that skepticism to curiosity about these kinds of technologies. In addition, we have ordered a Ford Lightning for our police force and an electric vehicle charging unit to help charge that. And then, because one of the requirements of the grant is you have a plan to fully expend the funds, we found ourselves, when we were adding up the estimates, with about $6,000 left over. And as we cast our minds around trying to think of what we could apply it to, we decided to try an electric bike for our bike patrol as an opportunity to try another kind of electric vehicle that we hadn't had any experience with. And I have to say, for being the thing that was in some ways tacked on to our application, this has become something that we are so excited about and so proud of. You can see in the photo on the slide, the actual officer who uses this. I had to go out and get this photo in preparation for this presentation today. And while we were taking it, I was having a conversation with him about how he's been using the vehicle, which I will say, and I had shared this with the team, one of the things he's been able to do on this bike is pull over cars, which has been amazing. And in fact has led to some discussions internally about, are there ways we could get more of our officers out of vehicles and onto bikes, which I think changes in some way the nature of the interactions with the residents that they are interacting with on a daily basis. And in fact, the officer, while we were talking about this and taking this photo, told me this amazing story about how within the last month, he had been dispatched to assist with a resident who was on a bridge in the north side of town in some crisis. It was not an area he normally would have been dispatched to before because he was on a traditional bike. But now on the e-bike, it was within a reachable distance for him. And as you can imagine, for someone in crisis, it makes a difference if the person responding rolls up on a bike versus rolls up in a squad car. So he was able to bike up there. He told me when he got off the bike, the other thing that was amazing is he was not out of breath because he hadn't had to expend significant energy to make it there in time. And so he was able to approach the resident and just speak in a normal tone of voice and really connect with him and calm him down, get him down off the bridge and connected with services that could help him, which I just think is an incredible story and something that I know we've talked about a lot since hearing the story. I know it's being much discussed in our police department, and I think it really speaks to the power of the ripple effects of getting a grant like this, where that was a $6,000 investment. It probably wouldn't have happened without a grant. It would have been something that would have felt risky to spend our own money on. And now the police force has asked me to be looking for other grants that we could be using to buy more bikes. And I just think that's amazing, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to use these funds to purchase a vehicle like this. So that's my spiel.
That was a fantastic spiel, Sarah. I think many folks on the call, including myself, are really inspired and find that just incredibly heartwarming and really exciting. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us and sharing that with us. I feel it feels a little off to move into the next phase of this presentation, which is to talk about a key part of the program reporting, but we must power through. So to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is, I'm sure, everyone's favorite topic, or the most long-awaited topic, reporting. It comes with every federal grant, but you can't get something for nothing, and there is a reporting requirement no matter what type of project you pursue in this program. So here are the basics. Here's what you need to know. The larger your grant, or the larger your allocation size, the more frequently that you will submit reports, unless you're using a voucher. That will significantly draw down the frequency of reporting. If your project includes contracted labor for construction, alteration, or repair, you will need to comply with the Davis-Bacon Act, or DBA, which includes submitting weekly payroll reports during the time that labor is occurring. The Davis-Bacon Act does not apply if you are using in-house labor for this work. And as I mentioned, you'll only need to report for the weeks that work is being conducted. If your project involves ground disturbance, you'll have to comply or submit reporting about the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. And those have regular log submissions that you'll have to do. And everyone, whether you're doing a voucher or a grant, will have some kind of closeout reporting. So I wanted to kind of zoom out and take kind of a step back. The main point is that if you have a lower allocation size and are pursuing a voucher, this will significantly reduce your reporting obligations. The type of project that you pursue will also reduce or can affect the type of reporting obligations that you have. So it's not, there's not a sort of standard one size fits all about how often you would be reporting or what that would look like. It really depends on the type of work that you do. And our team is here to support you through the life cycle of your grant and to help you kind of determine what might be the right fit for you based on both what you want to do and what you have administrative capacity to do, and to help provide resources to make this as painless as possible. Okay, so we now talked about what you can do, the magical powers of e-bikes, and generally kind of what the full life cycle looks like. Let's talk about how you can actually apply. Let's move to the next slide. And I should say, the applying for the EECBG program is relatively straightforward. I like to think of it kind of zooming out in four main parts. Because this grant is so flexible, I think the first step is to really kind of take a step back and do a little bit of reading and thinking about what you'd like to do. This is kind of informal step one or step zero. And we have so many different resources to help you with this. The next thing you need to do is let DOE know that you intend to apply. And you can do this without deciding exactly what you'd like to do. You just have to pick between our voucher option and our grant option. The third step is to develop your application, and we have so many resources to help you with this process, which we'll talk about in detail. And then the fourth step is, of course, to submit your application, which it sort of depends if you're doing a voucher or a grant, which platform you use. And then, yeah, those are kind of the four steps. And I'll just remind you as well, you can team up with other eligible entities and only submit one application. And in that case, you would identify a lead applicant who would submit an application on behalf of the group of local governments that are local governments and tribes that are teaming together to submit. Okay, I'm now going to talk about each of these steps in detail. Great. So on this slide is a list of the many, many resources available to you to help you learn about the program. At the top, you can see that you can review your allocation amounts. We have a program guidance document, which I know was linked in the chat earlier, that can provide a lot of detail about all of the 14 eligible use areas. We have a set of shovel-ready project ideas that we kind of know are proven to be high impact that you can read through. We call those our blueprints. You can also look online and see a list of projects that we've already awarded. Look in your region, see what other folks are up to, look elsewhere, see what folks in different parts of the country are doing, and maybe use that as inspiration as well. And I should note, everything that's kind of green on here is a link, and we'll be sending out this deck as a PDF, so you can just link from there as well. All right, on to the next slide. So I mentioned you don't need to know exactly what you want to do with this grant before you submit an indication to apply. So you can thumb through all of the resources I suggested on the previous page, but you don't need to come to a conclusion. And honestly, you don't even need to finish doing that to submit an indication to apply. All you kind of need to know is if you want to apply for a grant or a voucher, and you can't do both. You can change your mind later on. So that is kind of the good news. If you think you're going voucher and later on you decide grant, you have a couple weeks to make that decision even after you've submitted your indication to apply. So there's two different ways to do that. For a traditional grant, you would send in a pre-award information sheet into our program inbox. So that's sort of a PDF that you would fill out and email to eecbg@hq.dov.gov. For a voucher, you can actually register directly on our voucher portal. So the pre-award information sheet questions are just kind of embedded directly into that portal, make it a little bit easier on you. The one thing that you will need to be able to do this is to have a unique entity number or a UEI. We need to know that you are in fact the local government that you or tribe that it would seem that you are, and so the UEI helps us do this. And the way to find that number, if you don't know it already, is to look on sam.gov. If you don't have a UEI number yet as an entity, this process can take a few weeks. So I mentioned the application deadline is October 31st, 2025. I would start looking at that tomorrow, just in case there's a delay in accessing a new UEI. And I will say one more time, you don't need to know exactly what you want to do to submit an indication to apply, just kind of that vouchers versus grants question. And I really want to underscore how important it is to submit an indication to apply as soon as possible. The reason for that is once we have you in our system, we can help you. We can help you with your application. We can provide resources to you, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And it will also help us know that you want to apply so that we are able to kind of transition from trying to connect with you to connecting you with actual resources and supports. So over to the next slide to talk about what those supports look like. Okay, so the next step is to prepare your application. And I think you can see if you look at the slide, these are just some highlights of what might be included. What's included might depend on the type of work that you want to do. There's sometimes different forms for different types of efforts. And I want to really highlight that we have so many resources to help you with this process. They're listed on this page. We have sample applications. We have one-to-one application assistance, which Sarah will talk about shortly. And we have strategic planning support. So even if you've submitted that indication to apply and you're not sure what you want to do, we have someone that will give you up to 20 hours of planning support to help you with that. So all of this is on our website. Both our sample applications, our resources, et cetera. And there's more to come that I'll talk about at different ways that we can support you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so it's finally time to submit. You made it through this process. You think you know what you want to do. And I'll just highlight there are two different platforms. So if you're pursuing a traditional grant, you would use our page platform. And if you're pursuing a voucher, you would use our voucher portal. We have sample applications and templates on our website, so it's not a surprise when you get to these websites, kind of what the questions are going to be. And you can certainly look on these platforms well before you start your application to kind of click through and see. But just wanted to highlight there are two different platforms here. Okay, so that is how you apply for the program. I think let's move on to the next slide. And I want to say, as with any program on this scale, there are a lot of misconceptions running around the ether. So I want to talk about them now to try to address some concerns that we've heard. This slide kind of highlights those. Okay, so the first most common thing that we hear is that the EECBG program is a competitive process. And that is partially true. About a year ago, we had a competitive option for local governments that were not eligible for direct formula allocations. But that application is closed. If you have an allocation that is listed online, wasn't even for you anyway. So the main thing for you to know is that if you're on one of our lists, it is not a competitive program at all. You just need to apply to draw down your funds. Just go through that process that I talked about in the previous few slides. The next thing we hear really often is that the juice just isn't worth the squeeze for this grant due to your allocation sizes. But Alvaro talked at length about several different local governments and tribes across the country with smaller allocations. So you heard that many folks are doing this. And I want to highlight that earlier this week, we received more than 350 applications from local governments with allocations lower than 80K. So many local governments are pursuing this, even if they have smaller allocation sizes. And they're pursuing a range of projects like building upgrades, EV infrastructure, planning, and more. And we really did design the voucher option specifically for lower allocation entities in mind. So we at DOE do feel that this program is beneficial at any allocation size. Next, we also hear concern that these investments must be done in lower income census tracts in accordance with the Justice 40 initiative. And while we certainly encourage this, it's not a legal requirement of the program. Additionally, we hear worries that all new equipment that is purchased must be made in America. And we know that that can be very difficult due to manufacturing concerns. I have good news about that, which is that if your total allocation, if your local government and your total allocation is less than 250,000, which I know is the vast majority of you on this call, you don't need to worry about the Build America, Buy America provision of recent laws that were enacted. So you don't even need to submit a waiver. You simply just purchase the equipment that complies with traditional procurement standards. So you don't need to worry about it being made in America if your allocation size is lower than $250,000. Next, we know that many of you are capacity strapped and concerned about the administrative burden of this program. And I do just want to remind you all of a few options that might help with this. First, the technical assistance voucher involves minimal reporting and you don't have to go through your own procurement process. So in many ways, it is sort of the most simple, requires the least amount of staff time to execute. Secondly, there are some projects that would require less reporting overall, particularly those without ground disturbance or those that don't require third-party contractor installation. And so there's really a lot of different ways that you can cut down on that reporting administrative requirements. And finally, I want to remind you that you can team up with neighboring local governments or tribes. You'd only need to submit one application, and that will help share the reporting burden. I love the example of the city of Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee, which are doing just that, and they're doing building lighting upgrades and installing solar panels, I believe, on their local zoo. So very exciting. And finally, I know that there are concerns about renewable energy. The good news is that while you can certainly invest in renewables, it's not a requirement of the program. Energy efficiency projects or other elements that would drive down emissions, like bike lanes, are great options too. And so with those addressed, I'd like to move on to one more topic that has sparked some other misconceptions. We hear a lot of concern about the energy efficiency and conservation strategy, which is a required part of the application. So I'd like to address a few of those here. The main thing we hear is that there's a fear that you need to develop a whole new climate or clean energy strategy to apply for this program. And the good news is that this simply isn't true. What we do need to see in your application is that your EECBG program projects plan to help serve some kind of broader goal that you have in your community. So if you have a climate action plan, you just need to show us how your EECBG investment helps advance that. Or if you have a facilities improvement plan and you're upgrading to a new HVAC system, you just need to tell us how this new HVAC fits into that improvement plan. So it doesn't even need to be a specific climate plan. We also have many sample examples, EECS, available on our website that we encourage you to check out and kind of review so you understand the level that's required. Second, we hear a lot that are concerned that DOE might require some kind of local ratification. That's not the case. DOE itself does not require any kind of city or council ratification to receive these funds. You might have those requirements locally, but it's not a required component on our end. And finally, a last misconception. There's some concern that, 10 years down the road, a project officer is going to come your way and evaluate how you executed on your EECS. And this is not true. There's obviously reporting on the program itself, but it's about your EECBG investment, not your broader strategy. Okay, I've talked a lot about what you need to do to apply and concerns, so I want to now talk about what can DOE and others do to support you. Okay, so we have ample technical assistance for you every step of the way. When you're first deciding how to expend your EECBG funds, we have two great options. We have these program blueprints. These are 13 shovel-ready, high-impact projects with step-by-step instructions about how to promote project success. And examples, of our blueprints include energy upgrades, performance contracting, municipal fleet electrification, you name it. These are great desk resources. You can also connect, though, too, with a real person when you're deciding how to use these funds. You have access to one-to-one connections with a technical expert at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory for up to 20 hours of support. They can help you with your application, help figure out what kind of investment might be right for you. This is completely free and available to you. Excuse me. Okay, this is completely free. When it comes to preparing and submitting your application, we've got a lot of support there too. So you can access some sample applications on our website, including the energy efficiency and conservation strategy. You can join our bi-weekly office hours to ask questions and listen in, hear from other grantees that are going through the same thing. Or you can access one-to-one application support from ICMA, which Sarah will talk about shortly. But that's not all. We also have resources for implementing the projects. We've got blueprint cohorts, which I'll explain shortly, and we have the opportunity to apply for a community energy fellow. So this is a fully funded mid or early career professional that can serve full-time support in your community to help you administer your grant. And we'll be opening up more positions for that soon. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I'd like to briefly highlight our blueprint cohorts programming as well. Blueprint cohorts are essentially 90-minute monthly meetings led by experts in the field to coach, problem solve, and share information about specific EECBG program topic areas. If you choose one of the 13 blueprint topic areas, you can join peers and other local governments participating on a similar project. The American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy is leading this effort in partnership with several other expert nonprofits and organizations. And while it's completely optional, we do hope you'll sign up and take this opportunity to connect with experts and your peers. Sarah, over to you. Would you like to talk about the ICMA resources for one-to-one technical assistance?
Great, thanks, Andy. Yeah, so I'm with ICMA, the International City County Management Association, and we are happy to provide kind of that one-on-one technical assistance as you're working through the application process, and are happy to participate wherever you are in that process. So if it is determining you have some ideas for projects and determining if they are the best fit for EECBG, honing in on what the best use of some of those funds may be, if the voucher versus direct pay is better. And then if it is walking through kind of the actual application and just making sure you're aware of what different pieces of information need to be included in that application. And then we can't submit or write anything on your behalf, but we are happy to review any documentation you have, review the draft of the application that you are ready to submit, and just provide a little bit of feedback, make sure that all of the necessary documentation again and support for that application is complete and ready to go. So we have, I think the link is in the chat as well, but we have kind of an assistance request form, and you're able to put in your community, what questions you might have, and then our team, it's usually less than a week, but we expect we might see some influx. So say that it'll be within about 5 business days that we'll get back to you and connect you directly with somebody on our team to help you through that process and provide that support.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And we've heard wonderful things about ICMA's assistance. I also will mention, the sooner you get in our system, the sooner you get access to the support, the closer you get to the deadline, October 31st for local governments, the longer lines might be for that kind of assistance. So starting now is a great idea. I just want to flash up here that we've had several webinars that might be helpful to you, including trainings on our application platforms, trainings about reporting, and more. And so we'll send this out, of course, but you might want to take a look at this to see what other, if you have questions or you think there might be an answer to something somewhere, it very well might be in one of those webinars. Okay, one more. All right, I really want to underscore here that we are absolutely here to help. So you can join our bi-weekly office hours. They're typically held on Friday afternoons at 2:30 Eastern time. You can just drop in, kind of submit your question, listen to other people's answers, other people's questions. It's really, really great way to learn about the program and get your questions answered right away. You can always email us at our program inbox. And of course, you can write to ICMA for one-to-one application assistance. So I really look forward to finding out that you have connected in some capacity at one of these resources and seeing your indications to apply even before that. So the next phase is to just answer some of your questions. It seems like it's been a really robust chat, which is great. And I'm going to call up my colleague Anderson, who will kind of MC our questions and help answer them. And I would say keep your questions coming. We have about 9 minutes, so that's plenty of time to get through. And questions can be for myself, for either Sarah, or of course for Alvaro. So over to you, Anderson.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andy. Yeah, hi everyone. We will start by answering questions that we received in the chat. And if we have time, we will then turn to the audience. And if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to ask them. And you can just raise your hand if you want to. So for our first question that we received, someone asked, would you be able to use a voucher to purchase a zero-emission transit vehicle?
Alvaro, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, no problem. Yes, 100%. You can use a voucher to purchase a zero-emission transit vehicle, no issue at all. It's actually one of the projects that has the least reporting requirements, so more than happy to help you throughout that process.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alvaro. For our second question, if a municipality is awarded funds, is its respective county also eligible to apply for additional funds?
I can take that one. You are kind of only entitled to the county's total allocation. So this is one-time funding, and I think whatever's on that allocation is what you would get through the program. But one thing I will mention is like participating in these blueprint cohorts or other technical assistance can really expand the benefit of participating in the program. It really can help you maximize your dollars, learn about other funding opportunities, learn about different tax credits that you might be eligible for through participating in this program. And that can also be another way to stretch your dollars.
Thanks so much, Andy. For our next question, consortium.
Anderson, I think you cut out there for me. Did anyone else have that issue?
Yeah, my apologies. This is my internet connection is unstable. I'll repeat the question. How much would allocations increase if applying as a consortium?
I can take that one.
Got it. Great.
Okay, yeah. So the allocation would increase by the combined amount of all allocations within the consortium.
Thanks so much for that, Alvaro. For our next question, is it fine for the municipality to apply directly for the grant, no matter which state we are in, and how our state manages other energy grant making?
Yeah, I can take that one. Yes. So if you are on that local government list, you are eligible to apply for it yourself. You don't need to go through your state. Great question.
Thanks so much, Angie. For our next question, is there a specific timeline for spending the money once the project starts?
Yeah, I can take that one. I know that Tom has been answering it, and thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lee, for answering all the questions in the chat. But yes, so you have a 2 years upon project approval, and you can request no cost extensions at any point after that.
Thanks so much, Alvaro. For our next question, does the energy efficiency projects needs to be upgrades, or can this be used on new buildings?
I can take that one. That's a sort of a difficult question to answer without reviewing a full application or talking it through with more information. The general rule of thumb, though, is that it has to reduce your existing number of emissions. So a good example that I like to use is if you want to upgrade your streetlights from halogen lights to LEDs, that is totally eligible. If you want to install new solar streetlights in a place that did not previously have streetlights, even if they're net zero, that would not be eligible because it doesn't reduce the total amount of energy that is being expended in your community. I think, you know, something that folks can be confused about with that is like, okay, how do EV chargers work then? Because that's a new construction. Well, those are being used to decrease the total amount of energy that's expended. So I don't know who asked that, but I really suggest you just pop in our office hours and talk about the type of project that you're thinking, because it might be a little bit more complex or complicated than this answer, this sort of rule of thumb that I'm providing. But that is the kind of general rule of thumb, is generally I would say probably not, but you never, it's worth talking through.
Thanks so much for that, Andy. For our next question, if we want to replace windows, can we submit a grant just for the cost of the windows and then cover the installation costs with our own money?
Albert, do you want me to take that one? Or do you want to take that one?
Yeah, you can take that one if you want.
Okay, sure. Yes, I think that would be eligible. You're kind of entitled to using the grant as well. And I want to say as well, without reviewing a full application, we can't directly confirm anything is like immediately eligible. We do really need to take a closer look at it. But yeah, I think that would be eligible. I don't necessarily think that would eliminate the reporting requirements of on those windows, because you did use federal funds to purchase the equipment. So even if you're using a different pool of money to do the installation, I think you'd still have to work with the Davis-Bacon reporting requirements. But please remember that if those installations are happening in-house, you have like your own municipal employees that are doing those installations, and it's less likely to trigger DPA reporting.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Andy. I think we have time for one more question. For our last question, if we are in the process of changing out our LED lights, can I go back and get the cost of the ones we have already replaced and request the grant funds?
No. So the way this program works is that it has to be for new work. We can't go and fund work you've already done. I hope maybe you have more LED lights out there that could benefit from some upgrading. I think we have time for a couple more, Anderson.
A couple more? Okay, I'll look at the chat. One question that we received. So if we go with the voucher option, what DOE will find a contractor, not our procurement office?
Okay, so to clear that one up, if you are using the technical assistance voucher, then we select the technical assistance administrator that will be the one who will be providing that. But if you are doing the equipment rebate, your local government, county, tribal government, they go through their own procurement process. So it kind of depends on which voucher you're selecting. But if you're doing the equipment rebate, then you go through your own procurement process. And if you're doing the technical assistance voucher, then we select the technical assistance administrator.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alvaro. I guess we have one time for one more question. Can the window replacement with a contractor be done with a voucher?
Without seeing an application, I couldn't say, but I think so. I'm pretty sure that it could be done if it's I guess and more efficient, I'd say.
I see a sort of commonly asked question in the chat, so I might just address something, which is about combining with other federal funding, FEDM, CDBG. And I would say the answer to that is maybe. It's worth come to us and talk to us about it. It really depends on the mechanics of how the funds will be used. It's not an immediate no, but there has to be a lot of really careful kind of separation of the funds so that they can be tracked separately. And so come to our office hours, come talk to a project officer, tell us more about what you're thinking, because it's hard to answer that question, but it really does depend. All right. Bradley has a great question at the end. The applicant is not required to either submit an energy strategy plan or commit to specifically reducing emissions, correct? Not quite. You do need to submit an energy efficiency and conservation strategy. That is required, but it doesn't need to necessarily involve a major commitment to reducing carbon emissions. Take a look at some of our templates online that will help you understand what is involved, but it is not required to create a brand new climate carbon emissions reduction plan by any means. You can use an existing building upgrade strategy that you have, or municipal fleet strategy that you have, and that can really work. So come talk to us. We can talk to you about ways that this could work in your community. Okay, I have now gone over. I'm sorry about that. Tend to be too loquacious for my own good. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Please come talk to us. Join our office hours. Write to us in the inbox. We really are here to help, and we really do hope that you take advantage of these one-time federal funds. We sincerely believe that they will help you in upgrading some of your community infrastructure, et cetera. So thanks to Sarah and Alvaro and Anderson for joining us on the call today. And I hope everyone has an absolutely wonderful afternoon and weekend.